What do we think of the Minnesota Wild's opening night roster? Alex Micheletti joins the show to break it all down on today's episode of Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day, the first of 2 episodes released here on this Monday. And on today's first episode, we will break down the Minnesota Wild's opening night roster, some of the surprise final cuts, and what we think of the line combinations that we will likely see for the Wild to start off the season. My name is Seth Topol, host of Locked on Wild, veteran Minnesota sports content producer, embarking on full season number 1, covering the Minnesota Wild here for Locked on Wild, and happy to have a regular guest joining the show here for a Micheletti Monday. Alex Micheletti joining to help us break it all down. Alex, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Seth?
Doing good. And as I alluded to, I just like the Wilds, we got to make sure that we get ourselves into playing shape for this season. And so Locked on Wild is doing 2-a-days all week long, 2 episodes a day. We'll be releasing episode 1, this episode at 2 a.m. Central Time. And then we will be releasing the second episode every day at noon. So we're getting crazy with it, but the fact that the NHL season is here, I feel like we should do something special. So why not live for the chaos, right?
Yep. Just grind it out, and I can't wait for the regular season to start this week. Not only Wild, but just everybody else in the Central Division and in the league. It's gonna be a fun season. We got Olympics thrown in the mix too, so NHLers back in there. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely going to be the best time of year, and so a lot for us to dissect. And so I thought for today that it would be perfect for us to just take a look at what this final roster is going to look like to start. And so we'll kind of build our way up to that. I wanted to take this first portion of the show today to talk about the final few cuts that were a little bit of a surprise in that Marco Rossi and Adam Beckman sent to Iowa. We also have Matt Boldy on the non-roster portion of the roster due to his injury. So let's just start with that here, Alex, and let's start with Mr. Matt Boldy, who really had an impressive training camp with the Wild, but unfortunately ended up going down with an injury, fractured ankle, and it sounds like he'll miss as much as 6 weeks of this season. And so the Wild just putting him on basically injured reserve. No salary cap penalty going to be assessed for that. Before we talk about the injury, I feel like it was trending for Matt Boldy to make this team with how he played in the preseason. And, unfortunately, it looks like he is at least going to have to ride the pine for the first couple of months of the season.
Yeah, it was super unfortunate. Also, the acquisition of Rem Pitlick kind of threw things for a loop for all the young guys, because, he would have had to go on the waivers again, to get to Iowa. So they're at least going to give him a shot here for a while. So he has a gigantic opportunity ahead of himself. But just unfortunate for Matt Boldy. He scored at every level, and he proved it in Iowa for a short stint last spring. Just I feel awful for the kid. But Iowa's going to have one of the best AHL teams in the league.
Right.
It's going to be scary. Maybe it's for the best for all these young guys to get top line minutes, top power play, continue to grow as a pro, and then it puts pressure on guys like Jordan Greenway and Victor Rask, and Freddie Gaudreau, to perform, because Bill Guerin's shown that you've seen in the viral videos, it's all about winning for him, and winning a Stanley Cup. So some of the veterans that are kind of fringe players in the lineup, you're put on notice, and you better perform, or else management's gonna make some moves, call ups from Iowa for sure.
And that's a point I kind of wanted to hone in on to finish off this first segment, is that I don't want people to, by me saying that putting Rossi and Beckman and Boldy on the Iowa roster to start the year was the right decision, by saying, oh, well, you just, you cover the team. And so you're of course going to defend them in situations like this. Bill Guerin, I think, stated it brilliantly in saying, we want the best opportunity for these guys to get consistent, solid minutes. And Rossi and Beckman are going to be part of the top line at Iowa. As you said, they're going to have every opportunity to succeed and to really prove that what they did in the preseason is something that they could do at the NHL level. And so, as opposed to right now having these guys slot in for third or fourth line minutes, it makes all the sense in the world to give them 20-ish minutes a night at the Iowa level, because, as you alluded to, let's say guys like Greenway, Nick Bjugstad, Victor Rask, say they struggle. Maybe Bill Guerin yanks all three of them, and then you could bring them all up at the same time to where maybe they end up being like a second line or third line. I think it's the best case, best course of action for them right now, because development is consistent playing time. And so, the fact that that's happening at Iowa right now, I'm totally fine with it.
Yes, I'm with you too. It motivates them to perform well down there too. Because Adam Beckman, he thinks he should be on this roster. So, nothing like a chip on your shoulder too to motivate you. So that's what I really liked about that too. And plus, it just allows them to get maybe a little bit stronger, faster too.
Mm-hmm.
Work on just personal, a skill too. And another guy too that we didn't mention, Calen Addison too.
Yes.
We don't need a guy like him sitting in the press box either, being the 7th or 8th defenseman too. So, it makes no sense to to be the scratch forward when they could be in Iowa playing.
Well, and as we'll talk about next segment, I wanted to kind of dive into the back end of this Wild defense, because there could be a real quick hook and a good opportunity for Calen Addison to be with this team sooner than later. I got some concerns with that third line D pairing, so we'll talk about that plenty more to break down as we dive into the likely opening night roster with Alex Micheletti. More on that coming up here on Locked On Wilds. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way that gets all of that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite shows, movies, and sports all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part? There is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's DirecTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Make sure to check out the Crosschecks live NHL season preview show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time on the Locked On NHL YouTube page. Andrew and Mary tee up the new NHL season with a look at the key storylines around the league, featuring drop-ins from our roster of local NHL hosts, fantasy insights from Locked On Fantasy Hockey's Scott Cullen, and award and Stanley Cup playoff predictions again tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel. Back to our deep dive into the Minnesota Wild's opening night roster. Seth Topol joined by Alex Micheletti. And Alex, let's talk about what we have for line combinations, because there's a lot of good, and there also is some room for moves to be made. At least at this point, it looks like we're going to see Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Zuccarello. Top line, lock it in. Also going to see Jordan Greenway, Ryan Hartman, and Marcus Foligno, at least for now. Then after that, it sounds like it's going to be Victor Rask or Rem Pitlick, Freddie Gaudreau, and Kevin Fiala. And then at this point, Nick Bjugstad, Nico Sturm, and the guy that ended up making enough waves to make the roster, Brandon Duhaime. Let's talk a little bit about Duhaime here, who, he brings an element that I think always has the potential to play in the NHL level, that being speed. What should Wild fans that aren't super familiar with Duhaime know about his game as he carves himself out a spot on this fourth line?
Yeah, he's kind of like an Eriksson Ek. He's a straight line guy. He's got a little snarl to his game too. He played college hockey at Providence, and he's from Parkland, Florida. So, he's from a place that non-traditional hockey market. I think Billy G gave us a little hint that he was probably going to make the team this summer. He mentioned his name out of the blue, mentioning guys that are we're going to try to make a push to make the roster, and so that clued me in. He's going to really work extremely hard, you saw in the Chicago game that he stood up for a teammate. He got clocked in the face, but he showed his teammates that he was there to protect them. He worked his bag off to make it to the NHL. We'll see. I'm happy for him. See how it's an interesting line with it's an all college line with Nico Sturm playing at Clarkson, and then Bjugstad at the University of Minnesota. So, interesting line. We'll see if they can find some early chemistry, because it's nice to get some production out of your bottom six for sure. So, I'm excited to see how he does with his opportunity.
And it looks like, what we were hoping for in Joel Eriksson Ek being able to step in and be that number one center, at least through the preseason, looks like that is the case. That line played sensationally well in their preseason action. You look at that second line defensively, grittiness, Greenway bouncing back, everything you could hope for there. Honestly, I am going to really be interested to see what the Fiala line does, because I feel like it's basically the same thing that we saw with Fiala last year, where you just have a hodgepodge around him. That could be the spot where we see a Rossi and a Beckman come up and fill, because I don't know if I'm sold. Rask is a wing. Okay. And I'm going to be honest, I really haven't been super impressed with what I've seen from Gaudreau so far.
Yeah, he's just been a guy, basically. I feel bad for Kevin. He's always stuck with the most unlikely line mates, and he has to do a lot of work on special teams on the power play to get his points. But that's definitely a spot that you could try to pencil in a Marco Rossi, and man, would it be fun to see him with Fiala. He needs a skill guy with them. I know they're trying to reunite the old Milwaukee from the AHL when Gaudreau played with Fiala from the Nashville days, but we'll see. I feel really bad for Kevin, especially in another contract year, because he only got the 1 year, so he really wants to seek a long-term deal and cash in, and he's going to need the line mates to help him, because he can't do it all by himself. That's definitely a line where there could be some early movement. But yeah, we'll see. Kevin's shown that he can put up points even with the hodgepodge of a line. But you wish you wouldn't have to see it. But that's looks like the situation for now, unless Gaudreau or Pitlick really show some or Rask show some early chemistry with Kevin. So
Jeez.
yeah.
How quick of a hook does Rask get, do you think, if he shows that he just is, as you said, just a guy
Yeah.
that is on that third line? Do you put him in the press box right away and see if Pitlick can be anything other than a pulse?
Yeah, they'll probably. I think they'll go with Rask first, just because of the amount they're paying him. And you know, I think they'll give it at least a week or two. And see how it goes. Yeah, they could definitely. Dean's known for a quick hook too. Yeah, we'll see. They need that third line to help the top six score. The fourth line is, if they get any points, it's you chalk it up as just a hallelujah, like a
Yeah.
miracle. But that third line really needs to help the top six score. Kevin needs all the help he can get. And if you got an anchor on that line like Victor Rask, that could be saying a lot. But he somehow managed to score some wacky, crazy goals too
Yeah.
when his back's on the line. We'll see. And we'll see if this motivates Victor Rask. One last shot.
25 goal season for backs against the wall, Victor Rask. Oh boy, I don't know if I would bet on it, but
No,
yeah,
we'll see.
we'll definitely have to see what happens. Tell you what, let's finish things off today by talking about the defense and the goalie situation as we dive further into the Minnesota Wild's opening night roster. More to come with Alex Micheletti next here on Locked on Wilds. Built Bar wants to help you celebrate freedom of choice this fall. Did you know Built Bar has a wide lineup of amazing flavors that includes coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. Unfortunately for you huge fall fans, no pumpkin spice yet. So they've got amazing flavors to choose from. My money is on raspberry for the best one in the bunch. But if you're not sure where to start, Mixed Box is the way to go. That'll give you 2 each of those amazing flavors. Not only are Built Bars very tasty, though, they are also amazingly healthy. Each bar contains 17 to 18 grams of protein, ranges in calories from 130 to 180, contains only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing tasting, amazingly healthy. What's not to like about a Built Bar? So head to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Seth Topol hanging out with Alex Micheletti on a Micheletti Monday. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. For your second listen, you get a bonus episode later today where I will be breaking down some of the season expectations for the Minnesota Wild defensemen. And that's what we're going to talk about here as we look at how the line pairings are going to play out for the Wild. And at least at this point, Alex, it looks like we're going to get Goligoski and Spurgeon, Dumba and Brodin, Dmitry Kulikov and John Merrill, ? How concerned are you about that third line D pairing that the Wild will start the season with?
I'm really worried. It better not be Jordy Ben. He had a tough end of the preseason there. So I hope he's the seventh defenseman. I'm a little worried about Kulikov too. His track record has not been great. He's been a suitcase in the league. He's bounced around here lately. And John Merrill, same thing. So it really worries me. I know it's only 12 to 13 minutes probably a night, but that's still they could be a definitely a huge liability out there. So That's why we mentioned it, or we mentioned his name earlier. But Calen Addison, it could be get him up here as soon as soon as he can.
Yeah.
We'll see how the first couple weeks go, but yeah, I'm extremely worried about that that third pair. I know it was their goal to get bigger, but you got to still be able to perform, even if you're a bigger guy.
Well, and as unheralded as Carson Soucy and Ian Cole went, I'll do a little bit of a teaser for today's second episode. I used the adage that, a third line defense is one that I feel like does really well the less you have to say their names. Like, it's not like as you said, they're not being asked to do a whole heck of a lot, but they do need to be good at what they're coming in to do. And for as little, like, points wise as Ian Cole and Carson Soucy put out there, they did a whole lot of things that we just didn't notice. And so if you get to a point where as soon as those guys hop out on the ice, you're calling their names and you're saying, like, oh, here's a turnover by Kulikov. Here is Jordy Ben getting boat raced by two Avalanche players. Like, that becomes a problem. And so I don't feel like this is a hot take, but I think Calen Addison will be the first prospect we see called up by the Wild this year solely for that reason.
Oh, I 100% agree, especially because sometimes it's difficult to call up before, just based off, or especially in the Wild's case too. Some of the guys that are, right on the chopping block. It's tough, tough to get, Victor Rask, and because you still got to pay the guy. So, yeah, I think Calen Addison is definitely worth a call up early if things
Yeah.
go crazy. Another underrated part to Ian Cole's game was blocking shots too. Same with Carson Soucy. That's such a key part of being the low pairing D guy. And you may be asked to be on the penalty kill too. So that's just so that's another important part. So yeah, I'm extremely worried. It's especially with some of the forwards we have in this division. The high enders with Colorado and Chicago too, with Taves and Kane and DeBrincat, which we saw the other night, where they just completely just destroyed the Wild. We didn't have Cam in there, but still, that was pretty much the opening night roster. So kind of eye-opening game for sure.
Yeah, it was not great, to say the least. Interesting note, you mentioned the potential special teams. Potential penalty kill of Joel Eriksson Ek, Jared Spurgeon, and Jonas Brodin. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, good luck scoring off of that trio. My goodness.
Right. Yeah. Ek definitely gets under people's skin. So it's going to be interesting to see the pressure that he gets also on the first line too, because he's never been in that type of role before. So you're going up against some big time centers in this division too. A guy like potentially Gabe Landeskog. So that's, and, Jonathan Taves, and just the names that are in, Ryan O'Reilly, just some guys that have been in the league a long time, and they have been, they've played some heavy minutes, some big time minutes, Stanley Cup run minutes. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for Eck, but he loves getting under the opponent's skin, and that's one of the reasons why he got his contract. Is just the energy he plays with, and how sound he is, defensively as well.
They'll have to also contend with whatever Arizona is doing.
Yeah, just
good luck.
Oh man, what a nightmare! Tank City for sure.
Yeah, that's just bad. Goalie wise, we know the names. It'll be Talbot and Kahkonen to start the season. Any worries in your mind for either of those two? I mean, for me, I just want to see Kahkonen be a little more, much like with Kevin Fiala, just wanting to try to see the numbers spread out a little bit more and more consistent. I think the biggest thing is just with Kahkonen making sure that he can still get it done against the better teams in the league as opposed to just the bottom feeders. So if he can stay consistent, I mean, Talbot is what Talbot is, and he just is a really good fit with this defense. So other than that, I really don't have a whole lot of worry about the goalie position, at least right now.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strengths on the team for sure. Cam, I thought, Kaprizov was amazing, but I thought Cam was the MVP last year.
Yeah.
He especially in the playoffs against Vegas, he was the sole factor of that game, getting to a game 7. And so, if he can be the same as he was last year, there could be a little bit of a regression just because better teams now in the Central compared to the the lowly teams out west. But if he can stay at a high level or close to what he was last year, that's going to bode well for the Wild, finishing top 3 in the division, which both of us have predicted. And then in
Yes.
Kahkonen, just making sure he stays in shape and doesn't get tired at the end. And also, if he plays the Blues, or if they're scheduled to play the Blues, just like Cam take it for the night. If there's a back to back, let Kahkonen take the first one and leave the Blues to Cam.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. And honestly, like Andrew Hammond's just sitting out there. Like give him a go because the Blues are that Kahkonen against the St. Louis Blues ain't it. I don't know why, but
it's his kryptonite for whatever reason. Yeah.
Just awful. One final thing before we go, just so that we can put it out there for the listeners. Let's go with where we expect the Wild to finish in the division and your player that will surprise the most this year.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with the Wild finishing second, right behind Colorado and right in front of Winnipeg. I really like this team and the depth they have, and the goaltender that they have. I think they have one of the best in the division. It's going to be a tougher road, but I like Cam and the forward depth for sure for the Wild. And a guy that I think is going to surprise is definitely Brandon Duhaime. Duhaime. He earned a spot on this team, and I don't think he wants to give it up. I like the energy that he plays with, and I don't think he's going to be your typical fourth line forward. And I think he might get some special teams work too on penalty kill, and I think he's just going to bring some added energy to the lineup for sure.
I like that. I'm with you. Second in the division, I think. Because the more I think about it, the teams that we were saying earlier in the offseason could surprise and have sneaky good seasons. I don't think they will. Maybe real surprised, honestly, if Dallas finishes in the top 4. They have 4
goalies right now that they could.
Yeah.
They don't know who's going to be their goalie.
And they depth wise, they are like I make the butter on toast analogy a lot. They are like a dime-sized amount of butter spread over an entire piece of toast.
And not our old friend there. Jason Robertson too.
Oh boy, that guy.
Yeah,
I have no reason to hate his game. The whole Calder Trophy chase thing just was excessive for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think second. And in terms of a player that surprises, I got to keep going to bat for my guy Nico Sturm. I made my bold prediction for the season for the Lockdown NHL show that Sturm's going to score 20 goals this year. So I may as well stick with that. Nico Sturm is going to be my player to impress, and that I think is a perfect spot to leave it here for today's episode. Alex, before we sign off, though, make sure to let the listeners know where they can follow you. A lot more places that they'll be able to hear your hockey takes throughout the week as the season gets going.
Yeah, follow me on Alex Micheletti. I'll be. I've been bouncing around all different types of podcasts and started college hockey podcast too on the Soda Pod, MN NCAA, and going to be covering Minnesota State hockey. So Mankato, #1 team in the country. No biggie. And
For
yeah,
now.
love Micheletti Mondays with Seth. Nothing better. We're going to be recapping what happens over the weekend in the NHL, and so that's going to be a fun season. It's fun to have college and NHL here. So
It's such a it's a real simple thing that we're going to do every Monday, but it's a very important question to answer. Simply saying, what did we learn over the weekends? There's going to be a lot of ground to cover, and so we look forward to Micheletti Mondays all NHL season long. And that wraps it up. Nice, neat bow on a Monday production of Locked On Wild. So make sure, now that your first listen of the day is done, head to our second episode today, a solo pod by myself, looking at the expectations for the Wild's defensemen. So make sure to check that out as it will hit later this afternoon. Then after that, you can go listen to the Locked On NHL podcast. Plenty of spots for you to get geared up for the start of the NHL season. Also, make sure that you're following us everywhere on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. YouTube channel is going to have weekly content starting this week. Preseason, or pregame, I should say, postgame, some other features throughout the week as well. We have so much content coming. The only way that you can stay up on top of it is by subscribing to Locked On Wild on YouTube. And you can find new episodes every Monday through Friday all week long as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.